Well, hello everybody and welcome to Jeff's Baking Blog. Today I'm going to make Quiche Lorraine or Quiche Lorraine or not, depending on how you think about it. Quiche Lorraine is actually a French dish, pastry, and it's filled with bacon and egg with cream or milk mixed into it. And basically that's it. And that's the pure version. But these days, very commonly, cheese is included as well. Some grated Gruyere or Swiss, any Swiss cheese or French cheese like that, or even cheddar grated into it. Now, so the purists would not accept that, but it is a very common thing. That's why I've called mine Quiche Lorraine or not, because you can decide for yourself whether it's that or whether it isn't. It's not a difficult recipe, but it does take some time because you have to make a pastry and then blind bake it, and then you have to cook off your bacon and then mix the ingredients and assemble them. So I'll go on to the ingredients, and for the pastry I have 225 grams, which is 1.5 cups based on scooping packed flour into a 250 milliliter cup of plain flour. I have 113 grams, 1 stick of cold unsalted butter, which I've cut into cubes. I have 80 milliliters of water, ice cold water, which is 1/3 cup. I may not need all of that. I'll start off using about 1/4 cup and then add a little bit more if I need it. It depends on the humidity. And then I have 1.5 grams, 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So that's for the pastry. And then for the filling, I have 3 medium eggs, which would be large in the USA. I have 130 grams of bacon lardons, or you can use streaky bacon. And that works out at about 4.5 ounces, but basically as much bacon as you want, or as little as you want. I have 240 milliliters of double cream and 240 milliliters of milk, and I put them both into the same jug, and that's 1 cup of double cream, 1 cup of milk. I have 113 grams, actually this is 120 grams of, I said 113, but I had a little bit more, so 120 grams, about 1 cup of Gruyere cheese, which I have grated, but as I said, you can use whatever cheese you want. 3 grams, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, about 1 gram, 1/4 teaspoon of freshly ground black pepper, and then I have an additional egg here, which I'm just going to use the white only to brush the inside of my pastry case once I have blind baked it. So the first thing we need to do is to make our pastry, get it into the tart tin and bake it off. And I'm going to make the pastry in the processor bowl of my immersion blender, and I'll put the flour in and the 1.5 grams of salt and my chilled butter. And then I'm going to pulse that until it resembles a sort of fine breadcrumbs, but maybe with a few little pearls of butter still visible. So that's good enough like that, and that only took a few seconds. There's a little pearl of butter there, and that will be just fine like that. So I'm going to add in about 1/4 cup of my water, and then I'm going to pulse that again until it begins to clump just a little bit. and I can see that's just about ready to clump, so I'm going to tip that out onto my work surface. And I've tipped that out, and as you can see it's quite powdery, but if I squeeze it, it's going to come together into a dough, as you can see. Now if yours is a little bit drier than that, you can add a little bit more water. As I mentioned, I didn't add any more, I just used about that 1/4 cup. And I'm not going to work this very much, I'm simply going to pull it together into a dough like that, and then I'm going to roll it out straight away. So I'll put a little bit of flour on the work surface, and some flour on the top, and I need to roll it out so that it will fill this 23 centimetre 9-inch tart tin, and this has a removable base, so I need it to the 9 inches there, and then maybe 1.5 inches up the side, so I'm going to need at least 12 inches, probably a little bit more of a diameter for my disc. And if you can see some flecks of butter in the pastry, that's quite good. It means it's not fully absorbed, so that as that melts when it's being baked, it will cause the crust to become hopefully nice and flaky. And I think that's probably large enough. Yes, that looks quite good. I'll just give that a little roll in that direction. Just a little bit. And then I'm going to roll that up onto my rolling pin. And put that into the tart tin. And I need to push it down around the edge. And where just here I don't have quite so much pastry, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to snip off a bit there, and I'm going to patch that into this side here. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just for my own benefit, fold over the excess and push it up so that it rises above the pan. And that's good like that. So then I'm just going to take a fork and I'm going to prick the base. Like that. And After that, I'm taking some aluminium foil, which I have cut to roughly the right size, and I'm going to fit that into the tart case, and I'm going to press it up against the pastry on the edges. And then I'm going to fold it over just around the rim, and that's going to help to support the pastry as I bake it, just like that. And I'm going to let that rest in the fridge while I preheat my oven to 200 degrees Celsius. That's 180 Celsius with a fan, 400 Fahrenheit. And when the oven is preheated, I'm going to put this into the oven, and I'm going to stand it on a baking tray, and I'm going to put it into the oven, and I'm going to bake it for about 30 minutes until the pastry has cooked through. So this is blind baking, but without the ceramic beans. The heat from the aluminium foil will help to bake the top a little bit, and it should support the sides. And after 30 minutes I'll come back and show you what that looks like, and we'll go on to make our filling. So my pastry is blind baking now, and I thought I would get on and cook the bacon. So what I've done is I've put a little drop of water into the bottom of my pan, and I'm going to put the bacon into the water, and I'm going to cook that on a sort of a lowish speed, so it releases the excess water that it's got in it and renders down a little bit of the fat for about 5 minutes. So that's my bacon that I've cooked in that water for 5 minutes. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just tip that out and pat it dry, and then I'm going to put it back into the pan to brown it with just the smallest amount of oil in the pan. So I've dried that off, and I'm just going to colour it a little bit. And I should say that how crisp you make your bacon is entirely up to you. I don't want it very crisp. I like to be able to have a soft chew when I'm biting through the bacon, but I know some people love it nice and crispy. And that's good enough for me. So I'm going to transfer that to a bowl and just leave it to sit until we need it when our pastry is baked. So that's my pastry case baked for 30 minutes, and I've removed the foil, and I've beaten an egg white, and I'm simply going to brush the surface with the egg white. And my oven is still on, so I'm going to put this back into the oven only for a minute or two, and that's going to cook this egg white to form a barrier so that our filling doesn't soak into the pastry and make it go soggy. So I'm going to bake that for another 2 minutes, take it out, and then I'll come back and we'll assemble our filling to go in and bake it. So my pastry case is now baked, and what I'm going to, I've beaten my 3 eggs, and I'm going to add in the salt and the black pepper, and I'm going to mix those around, and then I'm going to pour in my milk and my cream, and I may have more mixture here than I need, but that doesn't matter because I will save that mixture and make some small tartlets with it as well. So that's good enough like that. So then we need to assemble the tart. And remember, this is still very, very hot. So I need my gloves to move it around. And the pastry is cooked, but the egg has made it crease just a little, but that's fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to sprinkle my bacon over, and then I'm going to sprinkle the cheese over as well. Like that, and I'm going to pour in the eggs and the cream mixture, but I'm not going to fill it right to the top. I need to leave room for this to rise. It will sink after it's baked, but it will rise up, and if you fill it to the top it will start to go over the side. And I think that's enough there. So I'm going to put that into the oven and I'm going to bake it for about 30 minutes. It will rise up and it will brown on the top, and then after 30 minutes I'll take it out of the oven and I'll leave it to cool, and it will sink down flat, and then once it's cooled for about 30 minutes it's ready to cut. I may actually leave mine for longer than that because I like to eat it at room temperature rather than warm, but however you want to eat it. So I'll come back when I'm ready to cut it and I'll show you what it looks like. I baked my Quiche Lorraine for 30 minutes and it did puff up and rose quite nicely, and then when I took it out of the oven it settled down and flattened, and this is what it looks like. So I've left it to cool down for about 45 minutes before I took it out of the tart tin. I've left the base on for the time being, but I've cut a slice and I've actually already had a taste, but I'll have another taste now. Very, very good. The filling has that lovely subtle cheesy flavour, but it's nice and light with the eggs, and then you get the bite and the slight saltiness of the bacon as well. Excellent. This is perfect for lunch or for dinner with a salad and such like, and it's not too difficult to make either. Very little can go wrong, and of course If you like quiche, you can put whatever you like in. You can put some mushrooms in, some onions in, or whatever you like, basically. So that's going to be it for this recipe. I hope you've enjoyed it. And if you have, please give me the thumbs up below and click to subscribe to my YouTube channel. In the top right hand corner of the screen there will be an eye that you can click on, and that will take you to a link for the recipe, and I'll put a link below the video as well, and I'll be back with another recipe in the very near future. So until then, happy baking.